Nick Saban, speaking about one of the issues relating to Devonta Smith, specifically his lack of size, here's Saban on that topic.
I think his performance speaks for itself. And I'll be honest with you, when we recruited Devonta Smith, he weighed 159 pounds. I wished he was bigger. And now he weighs 170 pounds, and I think people at the next level are probably saying, I wish he was bigger. All right, but saying all that to say this, there are bigger people who don't perform anywhere near how he performs. There are people that are bigger than him that don't have the competitive spirit that he has, nor the competitive toughness. I mean, tell me how many receivers are tougher than he is, that block better, that play more physical than he does. So I think maybe there's a time when you say, this guy really overcomes the fact that he's not the biggest guy in the world, and he really plays this game really, really well. And I don't think anybody could argue that fact.
There's a certain irony with a head coach talking about the size of a player while clearly standing on some sort of a step stool while doing so. Not that there's anything wrong with that. No. Like I got an instigator in my left ear. I got no I don't care how tall or short anyone is. I really don't. I'm just pointing out the irony of the situation. No, I don't. Well, yeah, that's true. That's right. Because as you know, I will only fight with the people that I know I can beat up. But I wouldn't go around with Saban. I have a feeling he fights dirty. I just think there's an irony to him talking about a guy's size or lack thereof while standing on a stool. That's all I'm saying. Nothing more. Anyway, I don't care that Devonta Smith's 170 pounds. The guy can play. If you watched one drive of the national championship game, you know the guy can play.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the more concerning thing is he going to go to an offense that can use him properly, or is he going to go to some place that's going to stand around and say, well, he's really fast, but he's not that big, and I don't know if our quarterback can throw it down the field to him, or really should he be going over the middle, or la, la, la. They've got to – I really just hope that Smith goes to the kind of team that is going to utilize him right, okay? Because I look at what happened to Henry Ruggs last year, and this could be playbook-driven, it could be Henry Ruggs-driven, it could be head coach-driven, I don't know. But when you have somebody who's that fast, who is the first wide receiver taken off the board, and then has the year that Henry Ruggs had, there was something wrong there that did not come into play to make him as good as he should be, right? So I think that as long as Smith goes to a place that knows how to use him, right, to an offensive coordinator, an offensive play designer who's going to use him in the creative ways that he should be utilized in, then he's going to be a great player in this league. But if he doesn't go to the right spot and he's not utilized in the right way, then people are probably going to keep bringing up, well, he's only 170 pounds, so that probably has something to do with the fact that he's not been the same player in the league. No, I think it's going to be so much scheme-driven that determines his success, and I just hope that he goes to the right place.
You're right. I remember when Desmond Howard came out of college in 1992, and all of a sudden, instead of facing zone coverages, he's got NFL caliber defense. Shut up. You were in diapers. And now I am. It comes full circle. But he started facing guys at the line of scrimmage, and they'd redirect him, and he couldn't get off the jam. And, offenses have evolved since then. It's on the offensive coordinator to move the guy around, to create opportunities, get him off the line of scrimmage, get him in the backfield, get him in motion, get him running at the snap so he can get away from that guy who's up at the line. Where do you think then? I mean, the Dolphins make the most sense right now. Myles, we've got quarterback off 1, 2, and 3. The Falcons have Julio Jones, but there's this weird dynamic in Atlanta where the old guard is clearly coming to an end and a new day is arriving. They've got Calvin Ridley. They've got Julio Jones. I would be surprised if they went Devonta Smith, but I can't rule it out at number 4.
I would also be surprised, especially because it seems like things out of Atlanta have started to suggest that they could draft their next quarterback after Matt Ryan at 4 overall, or then either that or trade back. But I think that Smith would make sense. I mean, it's not like when you are drafting, you don't want the best player available based on what is going on there in Atlanta. And I think that Arthur Smith could be the kind of head coach offensive mind, offensive play caller that would be able to utilize him in a really, really good way. So, yeah, I could see him going there at 4. I mean, 5 with the Bengals, it seems like Jamar Chase is going to be that guy. Although, if it's me, I would really think about going with Penei Sewell from Oregon, just because if you set up that left tackle for Joe Burrow, boy, that could be a match made in heaven that really, sets you on a good path offensively for another decade. So that might be where I would think. But then you get to 6, and I mean, yeah, you could probably pair him with Tua Tagovailoa once again and then see how well that thing explodes. But I guess when you have 2 offensive coordinators, I mean, it's like what they say about 2 quarterbacks, right? If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. I don't know what happens if you have co-offensive coordinators in the league in 2021. That sort of scares me.
And I wonder if the Dolphins would pass at 6, what the Lions would do at 7. I mean, I don't see many 170-pound guys that bite kneecaps, but the Lions, they made it an almost annual habit of drafting receivers a decade ago when Matt Millen was there. There would be a certain amount of intrigue if they went with a 170-pound Heisman winner. But this is a guy who can do a lot of things. And look, the last top 10 not very big receiver who came to the NFL, Rams, 8 years ago, right? Tavon Austin. I mean, look, lack of size doesn't matter unless it does. If you can maneuver, if you can play, if you can get it done, it doesn't matter if you're 170. But Tavon Austin, I mean, there's a ceiling for every great college player between what he did at college and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And for a lot of these guys, we don't find out where that ceiling is until they smash their head into it. And for Austin, there were limits on what he could do at the NFL level, as the Rams find out the hard way, even after they paid him a ridiculous extension. I don't know, to justify the pick after the fact. But, look, there's always risk. And that's the one thing we need to remember, Myles, 1 month from the draft. We're going to hear great things about every one of these guys that gets picked. I think that's part of the contract you have to sign if you're going to cover the draft and say all these guys are great and all these guys are potential Pro Bowlers and all these guys are potential Hall of Famers. We know half of them are going to bust. We know it. But we don't talk about it ahead of time.
Oh, because we don't know. And here's what I would say about Tavon Austin, since I covered him up close for, I think, 4 years. They're both in St. Louis and then in Los Angeles. I think that he's exactly the good example of what I'm talking about, where if he is in that situation where you don't have the great offensive coordinator. I mean, they had Brian Schottenheimer, Frank Cignetti, and then Rob Boris as offensive coordinators. Do you really know any of those names besides Brian Schottenheimer? No, you don't. And part of that is because those offenses were putrid. They were really, 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 really bad offenses. And then Sean McVay got there in 2017, and they started using Tavon Austin on that jet motion a little bit more, and that got him a little bit more involved in the offense. But by that time, they'd also upgraded the receiver position. So I just think that, like, you're saying, if you have that smaller guy, there is certainly a ceiling on him, and some of that has to do with talent. But I also just think if you have the right offensive coordinator who knows how to utilize that talent in the right way, then it doesn't necessarily matter what size you are, because that size can sometimes be used as an advantage. So that if you got the size, the speed, he's got the heart. And Nick Saban also is sort of doing a sell job because he's always recruiting, and that's part of his job as a college coach. He does an excellent job at that. But I just feel like this is a little bit of a different situation than you might have had with Tavon Austin, at least in the sense that now, with the benefit of hindsight, we know that the Rams probably were not the best spot for him to land.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.